Chapter 11. Dolls for Sale. A man with a tag in his buttonhole stood on guard by the parlor door. "Doll collectors?" he asked the two women. "Yes," replied one, "from Boston." "Come in," invited the man. "The dolls won't go on sale for another hour. We wanted to give all the collectors a chance to view them." Laurie slipped into the room behind the two ladies. Obviously, the man at the door thought she was with them, for he did not try to stop her. She had never seen so many old dolls. There were rag dolls and corncob dolls and baby dolls with china heads and lovely wax dolls with real hair. "Fashion dolls," whispered one of the women as she clasped her hands in front of a table of elaborately dressed dolls with plumed bonnets and long, fancy dresses. "Think of finding them in this out-of-the-way place." Laurie glanced at the dolls in wonder, at one in particular who had a wine-colored velvet dress poked out over a tiny bustle in the back and wore a matching hat. "Straight out of Godey's," said the woman. "Must be about 1870. "Somebody will pay a stiff price for these dolls," murmured her companion. Laurie looked at the dolls and fingered the 3 pennies in her pocket. In a cabinet were 2 lovely dolls with wax heads and real hair. "Montanari dolls," gasped the woman. "Imagine that! 2 of them!" What on earth were they talking about? There was a lovingly worn doll with enormous brown eyes. How poor Sadie must have loved her. The woman beside Laurie clapped her hand over her heart. "A brown-eyed jumeau!" she cried. "Oh, Hester, what a treasure trove!" Laurie turned and looked cautiously at the woman. She had never seen a grown-up person behave this way about dolls. They were looking now at a table of small kid-body dolls with china heads and old-fashioned wigs and staring china eyes. "Maybe I can buy one of these," thought Laurie, looking lingeringly at them. But a man pushed ahead of her and wrote some things in a little black notebook. "My word," he muttered. "Parian heads, French bisque, sugar bisque." Laurie reached out her hand and gently touched the brown curls on a pink-cheeked wax doll. Poor Sadie had loved these dolls. She wouldn't have liked this cold-blooded inspection, Laurie thought unhappily. Mustn't touch," said the man with the badge, hurrying over. Laurie drew back timidly. "Are you alone?" asked the man sternly. Laurie nodded. "Then run along. These dolls aren't for children." Laurie crept out of the house. This wasn't a bit of fun. All business and push, and nobody caring what happened to her. The auctioneer was selling glassware now, holding up dishes and glass lamps and crying, "Going, going, gone," and then beginning all over again. Laurie tried to get out of the crowd. In a few minutes she was directly in front of the auctioneer, and she dropped down on the grass. She looked around for Hattie and Henry, but there was no sign of them. She soon forgot them, for she had a wonderful seat, and she was very tired. The auctioneer smiled in a friendly way every time he held up something for sale. Laurie opened her lunch basket and munched her fried chicken and bread and butter. Finally, there was a stir and a straining of attention. The auctioneer paused for a moment and wiped his forehead with a big red handkerchief. "Here they come," ran the whisper through the crowd. 2 men brought out the dolls and laid them on the table tops on the platform. The auctioneer picked up the brown-eyed doll that Laurie had admired so much. "What am I bid for this jumeau doll? Over 100 years old." The auctioneer looked around the crowd, waiting for someone to open the bidding. "I bid 3 pennies, said Laurie in a panicky voice. At least she could try. Several people laughed, and the auctioneer winked at her. $25, cried a terse voice. 35, called another. The big-eyed doll with the sweet expression was sold to a neat young man for $85. 3 cents, murmured Laurie, with a funny old jointed wooden doll with iron hands and feet was held aloft. "This is a Joel Ellis doll, made in 1873, said the auctioneer. It sold for $75. 3 cents, cried Laurie desperately when the blonde wax beauty came up. 3 cents, she bid hopefully when the auctioneer held up a small, funny, old jointed wooden doll. "This is a penny wooden doll," said the auctioneer, "but it sells for more than pennies today. How many dollars am I bid?" "Someone ought to give that child a doll," whispered a woman behind Laurie. "Not at these prices," murmured her companion. 3 cents, Laurie bid over and over, but when the last doll was sold, Laurie still had her 3 pennies. The auctioneer again mopped his head and climbed down from the platform. "That's all for now, folks. Be back again tomorrow at 9. Laurie stood up. "Do you want to buy something with those 3 pennies?" asked the auctioneer, looking down at Laurie. "Yes, sir," said Laurie shyly. "Let me see," said the auctioneer, looking around him. "Here's something." He reached for a string-tied paper bag leaning against the edge of the platform. "Here's a bag of rags, scraps of cloth for making doll clothes. Make me a 3-cent bid on it right quick, and I'll close the bidding. What am I bid?" 3 cents, said Laurie hastily. Gone, to the little lady with the small change and the big ambition," laughed the auctioneer, handing over the package while the people standing near by clapped for Laurie. "Thank you," said Laurie, smiling. Well, this wasn't a doll, but at least it was something. If Kathleen would only come back to her, she could make some doll clothes. Laurie looked anxiously about for Henry and Hattie as she walked toward the gate. There on the road was Henry, just driving up in his truck. "Henry, Henry, here I am!" cried Laurie as she ducked through the crowd. "Hop in," said Henry. "I was afraid I would never find you in this mess of people. When I drove up to the front gate of Lilac Valley just now, Hattie hollered out to me how she had hurt her foot, and for me to come right back and fetch you. And just in time, I'd say. My, what a pile of cars! What have you got in your package?" "Nothing much," said Laurie. "Just a bundle of doll cloth rags. I'll open it when we get back to Lilac Valley." "Well, I was in Brattleboro. I went to the bus station. I hate to tell you, but your doll never was turned in," said Henry, looking straight ahead. "You mean nobody found Kathleen?" Laurie asked in a small voice. "I'm afraid so," said Henry. "I'm sorry, Laurie. I know that doll meant a heap to you, but I think you'd better count on it that she is lost for good. She would have been turned in by now, if she ever will be."